Hey y'all, Pastor Shane here. Have you ever wondered what can happen if you accept a gift that you don't know how to use or you didn't even want? That's what we're going to talk about in today's sermon. Today's scripture comes from the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 68 through 79. It says, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come to his people and redeemed them. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our ancestors and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies, and to enable us to serve him without fear in holiness and righteousness before him in all our days. And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, for you will go before the Lord to prepare the way for him, to give his people the knowledge of salvation through the forgiveness of their sins, because of the tender mercy of our God, by which the rising sun will come to us from heaven, to shine on those living in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the path of peace." This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. Now, we are in our final week of our series that we've been doing called Glorify, Surrender to Jesus. The first week we talked about why Christians should seek to increase our love for others and grow to trust Jesus more. And that is simply to bring good attention to Jesus and glorify him to the world. Basically, we do it so that the world knows that Jesus is good. Second was All Saints Sunday, where we talked about leaning on the legacies of the past to live present lives that leave a good legacy for the future. Last week, we talked about honoring God by seeking peace. And today, we're going to wrap up this series by talking about beauty. Now, I'm going to give you a trigger warning here. This sermon might be a little bit difficult to hear if you've lost a child or you have a desire for a child and you just haven't been able to have one, or you know you can't have one. It is my hope that those who experience these heartbreaks can still find the beauty in the circumstances of this message. And I also pray that the hope we experience in the coming weeks of Advent and Christmas bring you some comfort. But today, we are going to talk about the beauty found in accepting God's will for our lives, no matter how weird or impossible it might seem. It might seem weird or impossible when we learn of it, but we can be assured that submitting to it will lead us to the lives we are meant for. Now, if that's true, then the fulfillment of God's will for our lives should lead us to express thanksgiving and to be hopeful that unfulfilled promises will yet be met. The problem is we can find ourselves confused when God's will does not align with our desires or what we expect. I can just look right at my whole ministry career. I never thought I was going to be a pastor. It's not something I wanted. It is certainly not something I ever expected, but I met that a lot of times with confusion. And we all find ourselves like that a lot when we are confronted with God's will for our life. When we finally realize what it is, we finally hear that call pretty clearly, and it doesn't line up with what we want or even what we expect, we can be confused. Now, Zechariah here in today's passage, he was confused because he and Elizabeth were old. They were told they were going to have a child, and they were, we believe, beyond childbearing age. And so he was confused, and he expressed that confusion. He expresses that pretty clearly. And then the angel Gabriel decides to silence him. He decides to silence Zechariah when he expresses this confusion. I think this part of this story gets preached as a warning about being punished when we disobey the will of God. But I am not so sure that Zechariah's silence is as much a punishment as it is maybe a preemptive action to prevent him from sowing more confusion with his uncertainty. It was okay for him to be uncertain, but I think maybe, and this is just speculation, which a lot of this stuff is just speculation, but I think a possibly better reading than Gabriel punishing Zechariah for his confusion is to say, we don't want you to make other people more confused because you haven't figured this out yet. And even in the story, if you read it, there's nothing that indicates that Zechariah is even saying no. He simply is asking how. How is this possible? So I really don't think he's being punished. I think more this is like Gabriel's way of saying, let this all play out and let's see what happens. And honestly, if we're talking about being punished here, I honestly don't think that Angela would have considered 9 months of silence from me anything but a gift. But all of that is to say this: when we learn of God's will for us, it can be confusing, especially if it's not what we expect or what we desire, and if we don't know how it's going to happen. But here's a promise to you: we can find hope, we can find expectation, we can find even anticipation when we give ourselves over completely to the will of God. And that brings us to today's passage. Now, today's passage that I read for you is traditionally called the Song of Zechariah, and it comes in two parts. The first part is a thanksgiving to God for the salvation in process. It's a thanksgiving to God for the salvation in process. I'm going to read not the whole thing again, but if you look at how it's laid out in a lot of Bibles, there are like points that really tell this story, this thanksgiving. It says, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us, salvation from our enemies, to show mercy to our ancestors." That first part is a thanksgiving to God for the salvation in process. And that's actually what the Song of Zechariah is about. It's about a song of salvation, really referring to salvation. Most scholars believe that this is referencing many different parts of Old Testament scriptures to bring together this idea of salvation here. Now, the second part is a declaration of hopefulness and expectation that Zechariah's son, John the Baptizer, would pave the way and prepare the world for the coming Messiah. So if we look back on that there, we can see this as starting at verse 76, "And you, my child, will be called a prophet of the Most High, to give his people the knowledge of salvation, because of the tender mercy of our God, to shine on those living in darkness, to guide our feet into the path of peace." The first half is a thanksgiving about that salvation in process, and the second part is a declaration of hopefulness and expectation that John would pave the way and prepare the world for the coming Messiah. So even when God's will for our lives doesn't align with our own desires or our understanding of the way things should be, what can happen when we accept that will and trust our present reality to God? When we accept that will and trust our present reality to God, we can end up giving thanks for hopes fulfilled while knowing there is more to come. And that's what this passage is. It is thanks for the salvation that is ongoing, the hopes fulfilled while knowing there is more to come, the anticipation, the expectation, the preparation. I'm thankful for a very real expression of today's sermon in my own life. My wife and I tried to have our first son, Carmen, for about 7 years, a little longer than that actually. And it was really difficult because it was something we really wanted. And we tried and we spent all the money we could to make it happen. And we just did everything that was within our means to do it. And it just wasn't working. And so we tried for over 7 years to have Carmen. And at some point, I decided on my own actually, that my life was good the way it was, that I didn't need any more, that being married to my wife, Angela, was God's will for me, that it was perfect. It was perfect the way it was. And so I voiced that thought to my wife, who, as it turns out, came to that same conclusion on her own, that our life was good. It was what it was supposed to be, and that we were happy living that life forever. Now, 2 weeks later, after making that declaration to each other and accepting our situation for what it was, we found out that we were pregnant with Carmen, and it was amazing. I am not saying that giving up and accepting our situation made Angela suddenly get pregnant. What I will say, though, is that we put a lot of stress on ourselves. We put a lot of anxiety on ourselves to make this happen, rather than trusting that the way things were right then for us was good. And once we accepted that things were good, I think that did have a physiological effect on our bodies, but I think it also could have just been a coincidence of timing. Who knows? But what I do know is this: we made the choice to realize that what our current situation was good. Not good enough, but good. It was good. And the rest is history. The floodgates opened, and now we have 3 wonderful boys, and it's all good. I think that we can see some of that with Zechariah in this story, that he didn't know what was going on, and sure, he was silenced, but we have a situation here at the end where they're naming the baby. They're naming John, and they ask Elizabeth, what is his name? And she says his name will be John. And they're like, you don't have anybody in your family named John. And so they turn to Zechariah, who also has nobody named John in his family. And him being the man, they're like, all right, you're the man, so you must have the say. And they said, what is his name? And he writes on a tablet, his name is John. And then immediately he could speak. He regained the ability to speak. And I think this is an example, again, of accepting that the situation as it isn't just good enough, but it was good. And because of that, it had a real impact on him at that moment. Now, the reason why I'm connecting this to the birth of my first child is because as I was reading this story this week, all I could think about was this thing that happened leading up to his birth. For weeks, I'd been singing a particular song every time it came on the radio. And all I could think about was how it related to my son, how it related to our soon-to-be baby boy. And so thinking about that, singing this song and what happens later, all I could think about was Zechariah holding baby John and singing this song that we read today to him in the delivery room. Now, when Carmen was born, the night he was born in the delivery room, I held him and I sang a song to him. That was a song of thankfulness and hope, fulfilled, of anticipation of what God had in store for us, that God had more in mind for us, and the expectation that nothing would ever be the same. Now, the song I sang for weeks on end leading up to this, and then that night to Carmen in the delivery room, was Michael Bublé's version of All I Want for Christmas. Now, if you've never heard that version, you need to go look it up on YouTube right now. So good. It is my favorite version of the song. It is markedly different than the Mariah Carey version. This song is a song that's originally written as a love song of a man longing for his significant other to come home for Christmas, or a woman, a person wanting their significant other to come home for Christmas. Now, I'd been singing this song thinking about Carmen and all of the anticipation and the expectation wrapped up in the longing of 7+ years that Angela and I had been trying to conceive him. So on the night that he was born, I sang All I Want for Christmas to him. And he was born in December, so he was a Christmas baby. And it was no longer, though, a song of longing. It was no longer a song of wonder. It was a song now of thanksgiving and love. And it continues to be that song of expectation, thanksgiving, love every time it comes on the radio. And I get to sing it to Carmen all over again, which, by the way, he told me yesterday, me singing that song to him and him knowing the story of why I do it is why Christmas is his favorite holiday. Yeah, that just made my heart melt when he told me that. And I believe that's how we can view this Zechariah song as well, as a song of thanksgiving, of expectation, of hope, joy, and love. And it's all wrapped around the idea of salvation, wholeness, being made better than what we are and being made whole. So what I want you to do now is I want you to get a posture and you can think about me holding Carmen in the delivery room. You can think about Zechariah holding baby John probably in their living room. Any loved one that you might have that you would love to just see and that you are so thankful for that they're in your life. Maybe it's somebody that's passed on that you wish would be there this Christmas. That's okay to enter into this spirit of melancholy and desire to see them again. But whatever it is, enter into that space, and I want you to hear the lyrics of this song with new eyes and new ears in that mode. I don't want a lot for Christmas. There is just one thing I need. I don't care about those presents underneath the Christmas tree. I just want you for my own. more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true. You know that all I want for Christmas is you. I won't ask for much this Christmas. I won't even wish for snow. No, I'm just gonna keep on waiting underneath the mistletoe. There's no sense in hanging stockings there upon the fireplace, 'cause Santa, he won't make me happy with a toy on Christmas Day. I just want you here tonight, holding on to me so tight. Boy, what can I do? You know that all I want for Christmas is you. Yeah. And all the lights are shining so brightly everywhere. And the sound of children's laughter fills the air. And everyone is singing. I can hear those sleigh bells ringing. Santa, won't you bring me the one I really love? Won't you please bring my baby to me? I don't want a lot for Christmas. This is all I'm asking for. No, I just want to see my baby standing right outside my door. I just want you for my own, more than you could ever know. Make my wish come true. You know that all I want for Christmas is you. I hope that you find some beauty today. I hope you can look around you in all the stuff that is going on and find something worth looking forward to as we enter into Advent come this next Sunday, which is this season of anticipation for Christians as we await the birth of Jesus, that celebration of the birth of Jesus. We will spend the next month waiting for it, for that gift that we get to experience on Christmas. As you enter into Advent, if you are experiencing pain from a loss or from your circumstances, take a minute to look around and find something worth going on for, something worth expecting, some hope, some joy, because even in the most dire circumstances, there's always something to look forward to. I hope that this message helped you, and I hope that you have a great holiday season. Take care, y'all.